Hey guys, Super Shady here, and welcome to another episode of Pokemonday. And today we're going to profile out the standard Trashalanche deck that you saw my buddy Phil play in that match video a couple days ago. Um, yeah, sorry that video was a bit delayed. Took forever to export, so either way, we're going to get into the deck now. Yeah, let's just do it. Fuck it. We're going to start off with a 2 Trashalanche. Initially, I was going to go with more copies of the Breakpoint one. However, in testing, I actually found that a 2-2 lineup actually works out pretty well, seeing as if you have a slow start, you can tailor the match based on what Trubbish you evolve. So if your opponent is playing a lot of items, you need to discard it. You're going to want to keep your Acid Spray Trubbish in play more so than your Stomp Off one. As opposed to if your opponent isn't really playing that many item cards, Stomp Off can help add more damage to that discard pile. So just kind of nice to have the option to use both. They both have the same retreat costs, weakness, resistance, and HP, so it's not like it matters too much. It literally is just the attacks. So yeah, 2-2 on that. And then we play a solid 4 count of Trashalanche Garbodor. I had initially decided to run one of the Breakpoint Garbodors as well. In testing, I found that the Breakpoint garbage bag was just that, garbage. So I decided to take him out in favor of having another attacker. So we also play 3 copies of Drampa. I'm still sadly working on getting a few more copies of Drampa, so excuse the proxies. But yeah. Yeah, Drampa is a natural pairing when it comes to what to pair with Garbodor. Its Righteous Edge attack can knock off special energy cards from your opponent's active Pokemon, and its Berserk attack can just deal huge and massive damage if you don't have a Garbodor set up quite yet. Also, Big Wheel GX is kind of nice to be able... Oh, excuse me. Big Wheel GX is kind of nice to be able to use if you haven't used the GX attack for the game, as you essentially force your opponent to play an N. And if they don't play an N, then, yeah, you have 10 cards in your hand you can do whatever with. So now, because ability lock is still important, we do play a 2 line of Alolan Muck. I chose this over Garbodor for a couple of reasons. First of all, 9 times out of 10, the abilities I'm really trying to block are going to be the Tapu Leles and Shaymins. Usually Tapu Lele being better late game, Shaymin being the early game play, usually speaking. Also, it should be noted this card right here completely shuts down Volcanion, as even with Field Blower, which Volcanion decks should be running 2 of, it can't be shut off. So just a really powerful card to keep it to have. Not to mention its attack, while expensive and probably never going to be used, is very, very similar to Garbodor's second attack. While it costs 1 additional Psychic Energy to use, it does do an additional 20 damage, it should be noted. But yeah, it's essentially Acid Spray with a different name. And same case with the Alolan Grimers. I can't believe I can't find any of these friggin' things, but yeah. Yeah. Either way. But yeah, ability lock without any way to get around it is actually pretty powerful, even if it is just for basics. And then to round out our Pokemon count, we play 2 copies of Tapu Lele and 1 copy of Shaymin. And moving on to our supporters. All pretty standard lines here, I feel. But we play 3 copies of Sycamore, 3 copies of N, 1 copy of Lysander, 1 Lily, 1 Kukui, and then we're going to get into our more techie supporters. We have 1 copy of Brock's Grit, 1 Teammates, 1 Hex Maniac, and 1 Delinquent. So, Teammates is really good because a lot of your attackers, namely your main attacker, is actually a 1 prizer. So after getting knocked out, that Teammates really does help a lot. The mirror match it helps with as well. Sycamore and N really don't have to be explained. I think at this point, if they have to be explained, then you haven't been playing long. But same thing with Lysander, Lily, and Kukui. They're all just pretty standard supporters at this point. I did elect not to play Bridget, and I also didn't play Fan Club, as in testing I found both of them to just be too clunky. By the time I needed them, by the time I actually was able to actually use them, which is namely turn 2, I already had everything set up by dropping Lily for 8, which... Well, fuck you too. Anyway, by the time I actually had a chance to use it, I had already played Lily for 8 cards, and my bench was completely set up, as Lily is still the turn 1 play with this deck. And I think that title is going to hold for a while. But we'll see. Our stadium of choice, we play 3 copies of Team Magma's Secret Base. I had initially run 2, but I was not seeing it enough. So for consistency's sake, we decided to... Really? Are you fucking serious right now? Anyway, for consistency's sake, we decided to drop in that 3rd copy of Team Magma's Base, and since then it's been a little bit more consistent with that. So, not to mention, having that 3rd copy provides a lot more fuel for Delinquent, and Delinquent naturally... This one, I probably should have explained beforehand, but that's for the matchups when your opponent doesn't play item cards in their hand. Kind of forces them to discard them. So, moving on to our tools, we play 2 copies of Floatstone and 2 copies of Choice Band. 9 times out of 10, the Choice Band is going to be slapped onto your Drampa, and the Floatstones are going to be slapped onto your Alolan Muck. 9 times out of 10. To help boost Drampa's damage, and to take away Muck's disgusting full retreat cost, respectively. But naturally, those numbers are interchangeable, and I definitely could see the argument for making this a 3-3. Personally, I just wasn't able to fit it with everything I wanted in there. So, and moving on to our actual items, there's not a whole lot based on how much this deck is actually running around now. We play 4 copies of Ultra Ball. Still just a really standard line at this point, I feel. But we play 2 copies of Field Blower. I've been really feeling like Field Blower should be running in quantities of 2, as being able to get rid of both stadiums and tools is just insanely powerful. So, and not to mention, especially with this deck, as in the mirror match, or in any match actually, I should say, Field Blower is essentially an additional 40 damage on top of what you were already doing, just if you hit 2 tools on your opponent's side, naturally. But, so just a very, very nice damage boost, I say. We also play 4 copies of Versus Seeker. Again, still the standard. And then we play 1 copy of Switch, because Drampa has a fat retreat cost, Garbodor has a fat retreat cost, Alolan Muck has a fat retreat cost. Basically, if it isn't Shaman or Tapu Lele, you don't want it being stuck in the active spot. I can definitely see the case for someone using Olympia in the spot instead of Switch. I personally chose Switch as it's a quick play from the hand. But if you are seeing a lot of Trashalanche in your area, then yeah, that's something you're definitely going to want to think about. That does it for our items. We're going to round it out with our energy count. We play 4 copies of Double Colorless Energy. And 7 basic Psychic Energies. Just enough to see him with everything, but not enough that it clumps it up. Unless you're like Phil and you just RNG just completely fucks you up. But yeah. Anyway, ironically enough, even though this is a very aggressive deck, it really isn't so much my playstyle. Playing against it, I see the kind of power it can have. I just, myself, I know that I am not able to pilot it correctly. This is the list that I found works best for me. I definitely recommend, if you guys are going to go trying to take this anywhere, into any league challenge or anything like that, I recommend you try to adjust it to your own play style, as this definitely is more catered to mine. And due to this deck having odd matchups against almost anything, it's definitely advised to make sure you find your own way of building it, so you don't shoot yourself in the foot. Your code card for the week. Anyways, that's the deck for you guys. Next week, most likely, we'll be profiling out the Alolan Ninetales deck that you saw me play against Phil with, and hence also beat him with. That deck I'm actually really liking. But yeah, we'll see what other decks come down the pipeline here. Once Burning Shadows starts getting a little bit more leaks, we'll probably start looking into some decks from that set. Just like we did with Guardians Rising, we'll proxy out some of the decks, play with them, and see what we can get out of it. But again, we got to wait a little. I want to wait a little bit more until we see what the Japan set has, which that should be releasing fairly soon. So, anyways, thank you guys so much for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.